sure has made a lot of changes in 20 years since I've been retired. I can't recognize the place. Go ahead.
They put in a few new walls over here.
Well, a few new, I'm telling you, I didn't recognize the place.
It's kind of hard to recognize with so many changes.
Well, this,
I noticed they put a hallway here.
yeah.
Used to be a fourth grade room.
Yeah, this was room
Yeah.
1, 4th grade. These are all 4th, 5th, and 6th grade in this
Correct.
building.
That's what,
And a few years, why, this room had the deaf classes when I was here, and room 4 over in the corner was special ed. But then after that, why, then after they left, why, it all became 4th, 5th, and 6th, with 4th grades here and the 5th and 6th up on the 2nd floor.
that description held true for many, even all the way up to the closing of this building.
Was
you know,
that right?
Pretty much so. Had a lot of special ed and on the other side of the building, and LD and
Yeah, Title I classes.
Title I classes, right?
Had one classroom
Yeah, down there
in
in the basement,
basement here.
yeah.
Also, the physical education teacher.
Harry Traub was
down
had a
there.
room off on the right-hand side there. That's where all the film and everything were stored, that he used to send around to the schools.
This basement has a lot of history. Now, when I was here, the phys ed teacher had his office down there, and we stored chairs and tables for the whole system. And of course, at one time, it was used as a coal bin. They actually put coal down in there, had furnaces.
What I used to like to do down there is put my foot up on the side of the wall, which was crumbling sandstone, and it would just flake off onto the floor.
Jeez.
This is the oldest part of the building. yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
That-
this is a 1920 building, isn't it? The other building was the first one. It was
Correct.
1901.
I think you're right.
Yeah, this is a 1920
No,
building.
this building was opened in 1903.
But what
This
he's
one?
saying, there was two sections. The one section on that side and this section.
About the annex,
No, we're talking about the 31st
No, no.
Street building.
that's Groveland. That was the second building.
Is that the second? I thought that was the
This
first.
originally called Bond Street School. It opened January 5th, 1903. And then additionally, it was increased when the Groveland, which became known as the annex, was opened in 1910.
And they built a wooden structure in between, which was their
And there
auditorium.
Structure in between from pictures.
Right.
And in 1909, the city of Lorraine decided to change all the street names. And what was Bond Street then became West 30th Street,
Correct.
which was Groveland, became West 31st. And so the school was no longer, the name wasn't appropriate because it wasn't Bond Street anymore. At the same time they changed this building, they also changed the name of Lowell School. Lowell previously was the 13th Avenue School, because what East 31st was before that, what East 13th Avenue. So this is the oldest part of the building, and it was completely remodeled, including a new roof, new flooring, everything between 1954 and 1956. So
When you speak of,
what you're looking on, what you're standing on now, as I understand it, was flooring laid in the early 50s to replace the original floor from 1903.
when you mentioned Lowell School, you were referring to the old building
The
that was
old
torn
Lowell
down,
School,
not the
right.
one at 31st.
But originally, that building was called the 13th Avenue School.
Right.
And then when they changed the street names, they had to change building names. I don't know some buildings are named after writers, and some buildings are named after presidents. And this is one of them.
Well, the junior highs were named after writers.
Right.
Longfellow, Whittier, Irving, and
Hawthorne.
Hawthorne.
Also, you mentioned Boone before, that was Garden Avenue, across the street.
Across the
Garden
street,
Avenue School
yeah.
was across the street.
Right.
Then Boone School wasn't it added on to Hawthorne or something?
Well,
Yes.
yes,
They're connected.
That was named after Dalton Boone, who was a superintendent of
Yeah.
schools in the 20s or sometime 30s.
Al, what is the room number that's right there at the...
Five, would that be 5 or 4?
No, that's 5.
This is 5?
This is 5 right here.
I remember that we had to take we had to take room 4 and make it the teacher's workroom and lunchroom.
See, when I came, actually, I followed Sam here, and we changed that to a classroom, and I had to have a teacher's workroom, and I didn't want to put it down in the basement, which was the only place we had, we didn't have classes down there when I was here, just storage. And PTO actually had a room down there with a ceiling about this high, and with a big bathtub they used for kids reading. They'd actually take kids down there to read in that bathtub. But I had to find a room, so what I did is on the other side of the building there is a very, very small room, and I turned that into, but I only had a staff of, I don't know, like 30 staff members when I was here, close to 400 students.
Yeah, staff was much larger when we turned this into the workroom.
Yeah. And the book supplies were here,
Book rooms were there.
both book rooms, and utility doubled as both there.
There's a lot of new walls put in these.
Correct.
Well, I don't recognize it.
Yeah, they kind of chopped up some of the smaller rooms when the Horizon and other groups were here. We were mentioning earlier that this is kind of a unique building in construction too, because they built 2 different sites, connected, and then did away with the inside, so they literally at one time had to go outside to walk from one building to another. But during our times here, obviously they had the newer section connecting the 2, and you'll see when we walk around the other side, there's actually stairs that go to nowhere. I mean, it just stops. But some of the history here certainly is changed just in looks as we stand and look right at this now.
Well, I don't see any ceiling tiles falling. Oh, yes, I do.
Are we going upstairs here?
Probably not. That was the thing I was saying. We can't get to the second floor from this side. We actually have to come to this level, walk around, and then go back up to the second floor. Because of, again, because of the construction, they did it in parts.
That's a kidney in shape for 18.
One of the nicest things about this building, I thought, always was that library. The library is fantastic.
Oh, the
That's
best one in
that's
town.
very
We
nice.
had, there was a step down.
Right. The only problem with it is every time it rained hard, we got water real bad in there. It
See, I
flooded.
never had that.
Oh,
Well, as long as those drains on the roof were kept free from the leaves.
Now, you know who designed that? Warren Finkel.
yeah.
And you know Warren Finkel was a student here.
Yeah, the other thing that I hope on the new buildings, when they replace this, they stay away from flat roofs.
They have a combination. I've asked that question directly, and it's going to be a combination of both. The facade on the outside will be slanted, but he said even though you say it's flat, it has a good slope to it. And they'll have center drains, and I said, what about the clearing like Bill's referring to, or Sam mentioned? He says, yeah, it has to be part of the regular maintenance to do that. Many more drains.
They freeze in the wintertime, and then you have a big
Yeah.
roof problem with leakage.
Yeah, I think, and if you look at Avon Lake's new one, or Avon's, they actually have a pitched roof with shingles on it.
Heritage?
I'm not sure what the new name is.
The one on 254.
Art Coin Club meets there.
Yeah.
It's
Did you find,
Yeah.
you fellows find that when you walked on the floors in this building that they creaked?
Oh, yeah.
You know why? Because when they were remodeling it, the rain hit, they didn't have a roof and the rain hit the floors.
Well, let's walk around by the office here. And
You guys going down the basement? No,
probably not. I mean, we can go down for a few minutes if he wants to shoot.
pass on
You probably should shoot some of this because in reality it was used. It was used as a classroom, not when I was here. But
Yeah, 1969, we had a 5th grade classroom here.
you watch the steps, they're only this wide. You had classes in 59 here?
69. That's when I had 963 kids here, and the 5th grade class was in there.
This was my PTO had this room here.
No, this is my supply room for me.
Yeah, we had supplies in there. And my
This was
visit.
Harry Traub's room, where he had all his films and so forth stored.
These were actually used as classrooms. It's hard to believe.
Yeah.
Over here's a pair of stairs. Was that the old original entrance?
Yeah, there was a pair of
When I was here, this was so packed with chairs and things that you couldn't even walk through here.
This became the city art supply room too, for a while.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Oh, see, that was after I was here,
Yeah.
because this was a 5th grade classroom. Then when we our enrollment got smaller, why then we used it for sort of supplies.
Stay together. Stay together.
This is the furnace room and coal bin.
You know, it was amazing. I always was amazed how they left how they left this when they disbanded, you know.
See, when I was here, you couldn't walk in here. There were so many of those old tub desks. They just stored them all down here. That would have been a job just taking them out of here.
We didn't have a furnace when I was.
No, we didn't use it either, but,
For this building.
A lot of tables in here, still.
I don't remember what was there. I don't think
this was storage, desk and chairs
Yeah, when I was here
Oh,
too.
yeah, right.
for the city.
But this actually was a classroom because right across the way is an old restroom.
Right.
That's right, we did have some storage. But, sure, it's around. Well, I think that's it, right?
Now, you know, as much as they try to conserve space, look at the size of this restroom over here. It was pretty big. They're pointing out this was an old stairway, so evidently at one point in time this must have gone up into the regular part of the building, or it looks like almost like an old stage there, doesn't it? I can't imagine that being a stage, but it could have possibly been. The restrooms in there. Now look how big that restroom is compared to the size of the rooms, and
That's quite a restroom.
yeah, it is.
All those little johns, go ahead.
Watch your step, it's dark in here. Some of the male staff used to utilize this because they said they didn't want to wait in line with the women on the other part of the building, so they utilized this. Was functional.
When did they use this? I don't remember when, of course, it's been 40, let's see, I left in 79, so that's 23 years, and I've been retired 20. I don't remember this in 43 years.
Evidently the modesty at that time was a little different. No.
Well,
Don't know if they ever did, I don't know. So for those advocates that want to save the buildings and utilize,
Did you see the big fan in the other room, back of the boiler?
No.
Blowing heat.
oh yeah. Yeah, couldn't move down here when I was here.
Chairs all out.
Yeah. This was, they told me that they stored coal in here as well. In fact, I think there was a chute that came down through there, and
Stored what?
coal.
Oh, yeah.
And this is probably you too. The PTO was here when you were here.
PTO,
Yeah,
they started using it when
Yeah.
I was here.
yeah. And that has a little door that goes to the outside. Just, I mean, it's only a half door. All these hardwood floors.
These shelves, when I was here, they were all full of art.
Art
construction
materials,
paper,
right?
art
Yeah,
materials.
right.
Yeah.
These walls have seen a lot of students.
you remember Sam? You see there, and there was a little store behind this wall, Oak Grove and 30th, Roberts, some kind
the store, and he and Robert were in business together. He was the janitor when I went there.
One little story about this landing areas. When I was here, we bought brand new TV VCRs, and I used to store them in here, and I'd keep the doors shut. Not locked, but I'd keep the doors shut. And somebody came in off the street and stole the TV VCR right out of this thing.
No kidding.
Yep. It's amazing how bold.
Yep.
And of course, this was a clear hallway here. There was, and maybe one of you guys can tell me what the heck this was. I never did know what it was or what the purpose. I mean, I know it's a division. It drops a curtain, a metal curtain. What was the purpose behind that?
That was a control.
A fire door?
Yeah, it drops down.
Yeah.
Got a big lid.
I never saw that happen, but I knew it was a door, but I couldn't understand what the reasoning was.
You put a wrench in here.
So it was for, so if there was a fire, you hurry up and shut the door?
Yeah. Or if you want to
That'd be the
lock
first
this
thing on my
off,
mind.
Lock this off.
You would do it if you have an activity, you could close it off.
Now, some principal desk has that wrench in it.
Custodial.
Custodian.
Custodian, we never use it.
When they painted the wall.
This was the
they
office.
changed
This was
it.
the office for all of us, I believe. Was this the office when you guys were here too?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This had glass block windows
Yeah.
when I came in. I was always looking out through the door to see if the buses were here. So finally I said one day to my custodian, Bill Morris, I said, we got to knock this out and put glass in here. So we started hacking away. It took us a couple weeks to do so. The PTO was kind enough to buy the glass, and I framed it in, and it worked out so good so I could see the buses and kids out in front.
That was the nurses' clinic.
Yeah.
Health was right next door. This is where the kids got paddled.
Yeah.
This is where I announced in 1963, November 1963, President John Kennedy was killed. Right from here, right from this microphone. That's what his office
I was
off
at
the
Washington
wall.
Avenue at the time, up on the road.
I was teaching years.
I was a junior in high school. Junior in high school, sitting in a study hall, last period.
You are young.
I was teaching in Oberlin. My students were out for recess. They came back in and said, the president's been assassinated.
Everybody remembers where they were that day.
Yeah.
Sad day.
Probably September 11th, too.
This is the health room.
Of course, this has all changed. Now, another one that everybody talks about when they come to Garfield was this room back here. Now, this is nowhere near what it was then. This was a storage room for the office. I don't know if there's even a light in here. Workroom, right. And they had shelves that went to the ceiling. Now, you can see how high these ceilings are. And if you wanted something on a top shelf, you had to get the custodian to bring a ladder
From the
in.
basement up there.
Now they have like a stage in here, a parachute for a ceiling. All this has changed with this new group that came in here.
Room for all the supplies that I had. I was well endowed. Matter of fact, I furnished a lot of schools.
You don't want to catch what's on the wall.
That's because he spent all his budget.
Right.
I remember when I came here, there was still paper dated back
You could store
to the 70s.
Yeah.
every wall.
Yeah.
Yeah. They had a little playroom, looked a little stage and everything. When the people that came in here, Verizon or whoever it was, they had done all this. Because this was just a four walls with shelves all the way to the ceiling, all the way around.
Legal pads were.
We had paper that was so old up on the top shelf because nobody wanted to go up there to get it.
That's the principal's office.
together.
Kids come in from over here.
These are the floor plans from
Yeah.
the final, the big renovation in '56.
Yeah.
That's when they added the library?
No,
No,
that was
library was
last.
in
That was 70s.
70s.
Then this would have been where that wooden building, the annex.
Annex was.
And then this would be Groveland, or the
Correct.
school that was built.
And you
can
say
shoot
that
when we get
this
back.
was the 1920 building?
This
and
is, no, this building was started in 1909,
But-
opened in 1910.
And this one was.
This
what?
is the Bond Street School, which
Yeah.
is right over there.
Yeah,
We came through here.
yeah,
We're now standing in this area.
you're right. And this was when.
This was added in the 50s.
No, I'm talking about this building.
This is the original Bond Street
So
School,
that's
The first one?
1901?
1903. It started in 1901, 1902, but they,
They realized immediately it was too small.
would you like to guess what they paid for this plus the property? A little under 29,000.
Yeah, I saw that in that, in
The
that
book,
book.
yeah.
Such a bargain. Well, let's walk over to this other section, especially like the library and the, because all the rooms here are pretty much the same.
I'm glad you brought
The multi-purpose room at the end of the hallway.
What's that
Did you ever use those, tables, Bill?
For cafeteria? For eating? Yeah, why don't we go this way and we go out onto the stage?
No, no, we never use those.
We used the ones in the wall of the auditorium.
Yeah. This is the kitchen.
This was the extent of the kitchen. Even though we used a portable one in the gym, I'm not sure how it was when you guys were here, portable in the gym.
The hot tray. or the
Right.
hot tray.
Well, let's walk into the stage area here, and I turned the lights on, so.
That was,
Smells like gym ceiling.
Now, this is where all the activity happened. This is what I remember most. We had all our PTA programs here, our spring and Christmas concerts, different assemblies, and
In addition to lunch.
lunch, yes.
The lunch
And,
room.
but the one assembly I remember most in my 18 years here was when we had the memorial for Frank Baum.
Yes.
He was a gym teacher. Everybody liked Frank. And he passed away on a Sunday at church with a heart attack. And Leslie Prosak and Bud Albright produced a program, a memorial program. And we had all the gym filled with all the kids. And there were a lot of tears that day because Frank was highly thought of. And we had a plaque up in the corner there, but I see it's gone
I
now.
think Darlene took that, because there was another teacher here too that passed away. What was, it was right before you came, Sam, or when you were here.
We had two. It was Don Pepe.
Right, Pepe,
Oh, yeah,
that's the
and
name.
Dale Pepe.
Dale
Correct, okay, those plaques were up there as well.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, I think Darlene had those.
Oh, I see.
Or, you know what, I think she gave them to their families.
I see.
Yeah. When the building closed, we made sure the families received
Well,
those.
Frank's wife and
They were talking
boys were
about
here.
saving those types of things when they moved over towards the building down.
Right,
How they have to notate where they went.
that's a good point.
When did they put those, were those heaters up there, or was that something
Yeah.
you were here?
Those, no, actually, those are smoke eliminators. When they had bingo here after Garfield was closed, they were rented out by some of the booster clubs, and that's smoke eliminators, I think.
Okay, right, well, I can see.
Or heaters, those, you're right, those are heaters. They're over there are the smoke eliminators.
They didn't read the sign on the door, no smoking.
Well, at that time, they were allowing it to happen. If you go on the second floor of this building, they have stored all the old bingo stuff, like, I don't know what they're going to do with that.
Well, this, when we used to have Halloween parades, we couldn't go outside. Why, the kids would come up that wall, come across, go across with their costumes, stop at the kitchen there and get their treat, and go on to their home rooms.
Yeah.
In Christmas programs, we had a fake fireplace. And my secretary painted a flame so it looked like the flame was right like a regular fireplace. And I used to be back here with boxes full of treats, pushing the treats out, and Santa Claus would give them to kids as they came up. It was quite a production.
Yeah, we all remember cafeteria time.
What's that?
We all remember cafeteria time, putting those tables up, taking them down, putting them up, taking them down.
You know, the noise level in the whole building, though, built up so much during you could hear the noise out in the hallways from the lunchroom. It just the release of the kids when they had to stay in at lunchtime.
Used to be a time that all the kids went home for lunch.
Yeah, right, that was before, before 65.
That was a
but,
much better situation.
And you know, that was when the kids could go home, get some fresh air and get some of that energy worked out. But when you consider that kids were coming into school at 20 to 9 and cooped up in here till 3:30, it was a long day.
Yeah.
Boy, there was a lot of energy in those kids.
Yeah.
Believe me, sometimes the wrong kind of energy.
Well, let's walk around. There's a multi-purpose room right to the back side here. At least that's what they termed it. Probably one of the nicest looking rooms.
Yeah.
In the entire building?
Yeah.
We used it for an art room at one time.
Right.
Yeah, this is a nice one.
Then we used it, when I was here, we used it for a computer room for a while. Yeah.
And we use it.
Actually, you didn't want to get too much finger paint on this floor, though.
I think they added
This is
this.
something, the carpet is something recent.
Right, because it wasn't here when I was here.
Because we had linoleum when I was here.
Right.
Matter of fact, linoleum was like those tables on the wall there.
Really, that's correct.
We used it somewhat as a computer lab and as a science lab. We kind of divided it off
Right.
because we didn't have enough material for everybody to have the good science material. So we had it in one place and they took turns coming down here with their class.
I can recall many efforts trying to get security lights, and I see they have them now that they've turned the building.
This was the storage area.
Yeah.
We used to store cereal in here.
Mostly chairs, chair storage.
Yeah.
Actually, there's still things to be removed from this building. I mean, I think it's worth saving a
Yeah.
lot.
The problem is, and we've discussed this as well, is they don't have the manpower to come here and do that. It would take weeks and weeks and weeks. And then if they auction it, they have a hard time determining who's going to take it down. Like if I want that basketball rim, who's going to take it down? If you allow somebody, are you liable if they let it dry? So there's a lot of legal parts to it that they wrestle with. Now, my understanding is they just sell the building basically to a contractor, then the contractor sells off.
Right.
So they get their money up front, basically.
Right.
But
And
you're
they're
like,
experienced dealing that way.
you're right, because there are like tables and things here that look like they could still go. And I don't know what their intentions are. But
Well, there's a lot of building to tear down, I'll tell you.
Yeah.
Man, oh man.
yeah, have it done probably in 2 days.
I don't think so. I don't think so. Well, you know, I was wondering, often wonder where that, were you here when they had that beautiful punch bowl?
Yes, yeah.
Where did that thing end
You
up?
know, if I recall, the PTO used it.
Yeah, oh,
and,
yeah.
They had just taken it out of the dishwasher one morning, and they immediately poured some cold drink into it and cracked.
And it cracked?
And it
Oh.
cracked. Yeah.
You know how that was purchased? Mrs. Ben Futch, who was my PTA president, sold a lot of coffee. And I don't know what the promotion was, but when she sold all that coffee, that was the prize that she got, that punch bowl. That was a classic.
It was.
That was a beautiful punch bowl. I often wonder what happened to that thing.
Now you know. Went to the
Yeah,
BFI.
I guess Sam brought me up to date.
This was a kindergarten room.
Was this one here when you were here,
No,
Sam?
that wasn't there. This was the stairway going up.
Yeah.
Remember, it was
Yeah.
Yeah.
sheet there.
Yeah.
Just the railing.
Yeah.
Well, and I guess dealing with having, when they have small children here, did they have Head Start here?
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, Head Start was upstairs, I think.
That was a kindergarten room.
Kindergarten room when I was, and then we changed it to a
Yeah.
half-day kindergarten, half-day music room.
Right.
Is that right? Down the stairs?
Right here. This was a kindergarten room, and that's a
Yeah,
kindergarten
that
room
was a
there.
kindergarten room.
And you can tell by the storage here and the small restrooms that are inside the rooms. The coat room. This is typical of a kindergarten room.
Yeah, see how low the racks are, the hooks.
Now, and this was the more modern, otherwise this is the most recent addition to the building in the 50s. And so, of course, at that time,
When did
most
that
of the
come
building.
in, those,
Yeah, again, with this new program that came in, they did a lot to this building,
Is
and
that right?
they added this.
boy, oh boy.
These types of windows here, they flop out on the bottom. We always had bats and sparrows and yellow jackets in this room.
Yeah.
I don't know what was about this room, and they'd have to take all the children out of the classroom because they come in through the windows and you weren't allowed to have screens on the windows.
Yeah. Especially that kind, it would be hard to put the screen on. You have to put them on the inside.
Basement type, yeah.
And Dick and the others, when you had carnivals, did you have carnivals?
Oh, yes.
Here's where they were, right here. If the weather was nice, if not, we used these rooms over here. But boy, there was a lot of activity going on, a lot of money made there.
They would have to plow a lot of snow today.
Yeah, I think so.
Another unique thing about these old buildings were the fire escapes. Now, I see they've removed some of the ones that went to the second floor, probably to keep kids off the roofs
Yeah.
during this closed time. But that was a big part of these old buildings.
Second floor on the other side,
Right.
one classroom had an exit door on.
Correct.
Right.
And then from there, you could climb over the fire escape and onto the roof. We had a special education student girl that used to be out on that roof every time she heard that the principal was walking up the stairway. I don't know what I ever did to that little girl, but she was scared stiff, and nobody could reason with her. She went right out there, and we had to talk her back in, of course.
Yeah, there was a number of times I would get calls from neighbors that say, there are people up on the roof, and I said, well,
Oh,
no.
at night.
Oh, yeah. Find even,
Well, you can get up on a roof from those
Sure.
little rooms up on the second floor.
we'd find bottles up there, and kids would go up there and party.
They used to tear the roofing, I'm thinking of blacktop, by the chunks and throw them over into the playground. The kids in the roof. And then they wondered why the roof leaked.
Now, Bill, this was not.
I was up on the roof. I went up there because we were getting some terrible leaks on the second floor, and the carpenters were here one day, and so I took advantage to go up there. It's kind of unique.
It was in the 70s sometime, early
Okay,
70s.
during the
Put down my
70s.
Because it's not on the 70, 71. 70, 71
Yeah, this is
school year
a-
when they were doing-
This was a little teacher's lounge
Yeah,
here,
right here.
because it has a restroom in it.
Right.
That was a real small one.
That's where it was when I came, that's why we had to move it, it was so small.
And then I just added that one there, because that was a library,
Yeah, at one
I was
time.
told, yeah.
At one time.
And we turned that into the...
When I was here, that was an SBH classroom.
Well, Bill's headed down to this library. This is probably one of the nicest rooms. In fact, I think it is the nicest room in this building. It's so unique with the levels, and it's certainly not handicap accessible, but
Yeah, a lot of activity in this room too. Jane Snodgrass was my librarian, did a terrific job.
You can see where the water builds up
Yeah,
on the roof and has come down through the
Boy,
ceiling.
no, see, we didn't have that problem while I
yeah,
was
we
here.
had...
Maybe because it was new, you know, maybe after years it settled down or settled and that's when it opened up, but we never had any water problems whatsoever.
We had that problem several times.
Yeah,
It's a beautiful room.
the nicest room. As I say, Warren Finkel designed this, and he was a former student here. This we didn't have, this must have been put in.
This was all lined with the, there were counters here with bookshelves on
Yeah,
both
right.
sides. All the way around the whole room, there were bookshelves.
Yeah, this brings back a lot of memories. Well,
Ooh, it's cold down here.
it sure is.
Has a separate heating.
Well, as we say, we can get to the moon back. We're gonna have a little weather. And I'm sure that all the new buildings will have, they're gonna have some sort of.
The way you can feel the heat as you come up.
Yeah.
It feels
Oh,
nice.
feels good. Whew. This was a teacher's workroom, very small. He wants us to go in. Little work area, little restroom. Had tables in here for them to eat. Don't recall a refrigerator, maybe there was.
Refrigerator and pop machine. Yeah.
Often wondered if this wasn't a restroom at one time, but I never really saw any proof of that. But
Actually, you're absolutely right.
it was a restroom.
It was a restroom?
Here it is, right here. Okay, we're right here. And this is the restroom. So in 1956,
They changed
it
it.
was a restroom.
Okay.
And the room you left, which is the newest room in the building, is cold because it has its own heat.
Heat,
Right.
right.
And the roof leaks and is in terrible shape, and they can't use the units up there. So that's why it's cold in there.
Let's just stay together so we can have us all. This is yet another kindergarten room. Was a third grade when I was here, but you can see it was designed for kindergarten. It's the same as the other one we were just in. Sam and I were just talking about this room here.
This was the library.
The library at one time. This is the one I turned into a teacher's workroom because it's the smallest room in the building, I thought. And so I thought better to use it as a teacher's workroom than as a classroom because it's a very small room. I remember working many, many hours here trying to change this over.
I remember having a meeting here for Saul Cohen and I were chairman of the math study, and this is the room we met and selected a certain math series that everybody seemed to like at that time.
In fact, we had no water in this room at all, and I had the plumber come and he put that in
That's right, there
for the teachers.
Yeah. Makes a big difference between this room and the one that we just came from, that
Right.
learning center.
Just shows the difference of 20 years of building know-how.
Right, right.
That was built in the 70s, this was built in the 50s. And you can see the electrical plugs was all added. It's an afterthought, you can see, because it's all on the outside of the wall. And many of these rooms didn't even have electrical plugs in them.
Yeah, well, it was in the minutes of the last meeting. I noticed that you donated that.
The area that we're walking through now was where the wooden
Storage,
building that
yeah.
connected
The annexes.
Restroom here.
together. And then in 1956, it was, when they redid the building, it was made a permanent structure.
Boiler rooms downstairs.
So as we go this way, we'll be walking into what was originally called Grovelandsville, later then become the annex to Garfield when they changed the street names in 1910. So actually, by the time the building opened, it was already no longer Groveland School, it was the annex. And that's where Bill is going into now. And that part of the building we're entering now is approximately 92 years old.
Yeah, here's the proof of this was the end of the building. This probably went to the second floor, and you can see this stairway goes to nowhere. So of course, we just use it as any storage we could.
Yeah. As I recall, it was hard to regulate the heat in this room because it sits right over the boiler.
You can feel it walk in here now even. It feels warmer in this room than any of the other
Yeah.
rooms.
These are pretty big sized rooms
Yeah.
when they empty everything up, you know.
Yeah, I'm sure teachers would like to have rooms this
Yeah.
size now.
This was Martha Smith's room, who later went to Homewood and became LEA president.
Right.
Her name was Martha Horner at that time, back in the 60s.
We started having, actually, multiple rooms had the water leakage coming. Now this is on the first floor. You can imagine what the second floor looks like.
Well, I remember coming in one Christmas vacation to check the building, and the room right above this one had a bad roof leak, and the floor in this area had buckled up about a foot high.
Yeah.
So they tore the entire floor out, put plywood down, and carpeted it.
And you'll see that buckling when we get upstairs. There's some of that going on right now.
That corner seemed to have a
Yeah. And this is right where the drain comes down on the outside. And I know they used to come and throw salt in that drain to keep it open during the winter, but it didn't seem to work. It overflow.
Glass blackboards.
Glass? No, did you see that? Glass backboards.
You can see the roof.
Yep. Probably a rock came through the window.
This is where they took the brick out, right below these windows here, for the,
Right.
ended up with Mary Stittak.
Right.
Yes. That's the governor.
This is a unique thing of these old buildings, and they all still work. These old closet doors that work on a
Yeah.
hinge, and kids used to hide in there, and teachers, bulletin boards.
All of the 1950s schools had this type of concept.
This classroom is part of Groveland School, so this is a 92-year-old, 93-year-old classroom that was remodeled.
They've taken the coat hooks out of here. Yeah, they're all empty now.
Oh, yeah.
And the kids used to go inside, they'd close them in.
Yeah, yeah. Well, our first graders weren't that sophisticated. Maybe I wouldn't put up with it.
Well, that was probably the worst of things the kids did back in the 50s, huh?
Yeah,
Bill, I hear you were one.
Who are we kidding?
Is that true?
well, I believe in the old school, you know? The old school, Jim. Discipline comes first. A lot of modern day educators feel differently.
Let's see.
Curriculum comes first.
This side used to, here's the buckling floor like Sam was talking about. Now, again, this is on the first floor. Can you imagine what it's like on the second floor? It's exactly what it would do. Teachers would come in and you never knew if you were going to have the buckled floor or not. You'd never know if the bubbling on the walls, because that's just water running straight down through this.
Boy, that must have all happened after I was here, because I had none of these problems in 70, when I left in 79.
Yeah, this was a common thing. I mean,
It's your fault for leaving.
carpenters would be here all the time for that.
So how many of you principals paddle kids?
Oh,
When it was allowed, most of them.
that was the last resort.
How
Don't
about
think
you,
that
Al?
we,
Were they paddling when you were here?
Sad to say, yes. It was a last resort, as I said, but it was still allowed. That ended.
Usually with parental.
That ended when I was a principal at Mass, and so that had to have been in like 96, 97 or something that stopped.
Actually, it's the old concept of being treated at school the way you would be treated at home.
local parental.
Local parental.
You know what was nice about certainly I never wanted to paddle, but it was the threat of the paddle. We used to have the threat of telling your parents. That didn't work anymore.
No.
So then it went to threat of the paddle.
They
But
come and take you to court.
We have a tape that we got from Olin Reese, who was from Lima.
Yeah.
And Lima schools are going through a renovation, and they did what we want to do, and they did a video of their school system's history. And there's one part where they're talking to a student, and apparently in the 70s, they were doing student sit-ins. And one kid said, my dad told me when I went to school, that if I sat down in school, I wouldn't be sitting down when I got home.
I used to hear that all the time too. If whatever you get at school, you're going to get double at home. So.
Yeah, well. Oh, yeah, it was Sandy Dobrun's when I was here, all the time I was here.
Well, I was here too.
Now there are two more points, at least to my opinion, two more points of interest here. Certainly the basement area where the boiler room, and there are other classrooms down there. And one was being used by Darlene Werner when I was here. She used to call it her mushrooms because this room literally had mushrooms in it at one point. And then the art room was on the other side. I don't know what it was when you guys were here. It was
Identical.
We had problems also with water down there. She loved that room, but every time it rained, we had water in the basement, and it would ruin things for her, so she knew enough to keep things up off the floor.
That room one year was a music area.
Right.
But it was changed back to a classroom.
Well, I had one year Jackie Schuneman taught down there, first grade.
And the other point of interest on this end of the building is, and I believe at one time it must have been the principal's office. It's kind of like up in a crow's nest. We use it for Title I because it's a very small room, and a counselor used one of them also. But they're on the second floor, then beyond, like a little attic. Right. And that's kind of unique for this building.
And then that leads to the roof, that little stairway.
A custodian story that my first year here, we were having, of course, you always have your open house when school first starts. And it was like the first week of school, and the night we had our open house, this stairway right here, look how big these windows are in the hallway. That window right there blew out about 20 minutes before parents were supposed to be here. I mean, it was so windy that night, it blew out, and we had glass all over here. So Bill and I were trying to figure out how we were, number one, patch it. And that old blind was flipping in the wind and glass all over the place. So we cleaned all that up. Teachers pitched in right away and got all that cleaned up. We didn't have plywood. We didn't have tools. We didn't have anything to patch this. So we were looking for cardboard, anything we could possibly. We were trying stapling, and it was a mess. And there I'm expecting parents. My first year in the building. That was a feat that night.
You finally got some plywood.
Well, the next day we got plywood, but that night, literally, we just put cardboard on it.
I can't understand why they put this wall up. I mean, this is all open when I was.
Yeah, I'm not sure why they would have done
Well, they
that.
did an awful lot of wall building.
That had something to do with probably standards for this Head Start program that was here.
Oh, that could be too, yeah.
Because there was nothing when, I was the last one here, and none of that was here.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
Oh, well, it must have been afterwards.
Yeah, that probably had to do with some state regulations they had to deal with.
They got that boxing ring down there in that room yet?
That's gone now.
Oh, it's gone?
Yeah, but you could tell where it was anchored in. When we walked through here a couple weeks ago, I could tell where, because somebody had told me there was a boxing ring. So that was used by the community, not just for the Head Start program or the.
And they sold clothes too, or gave clothes away in one of the rooms.
So evidently several agencies were in here.
Yeah, there were. Yeah.
Utilizing the old building, renting it out. Would you like to take a look at those? You're going to wait here? Because up here, that's the only thing that I would say it's different. I always kind of like the division of these stairways because the kids knew enough to stay to the right. I don't know if you're going to be able to see. This was a little teacher's washroom kind of thing. And then up here, what I just assumed to be probably was the original principal's office. And we use it for a little reading room. It's really not that big.
Speech therapist room.
Right. And very similar over here on this side. You can, up there on top, there's your carpeted.
That goes up to the roof.
Look at that. Look how the water's gone through
And
that.
then you go right up to the roof.
These are some big rooms. Teachers really liked that.
Al, this was the famous room 40. Sue Crabtree, Darlene Werner. They would put all kind of programs together. I remember once they sold some things, and we went to McGarvey's. They took their classes to McGarvey's, and boy, those kids are well behaved.
Yeah.
Mayor was there, and I think the superintendent. We had a wonderful time.
See, this is the room
Okay.
we had the carpet because the floor had buckled so badly. And
See, that when I was here was wood.
yeah, well, see, it had buckled. I came in one Christmas vacation, and this whole area had buckled right up.
Right.
So they tore the entire hardwood out and put plywood and then carpeted.
And you can see a perfect example of that right across the hall. We'll walk over there because they decided they were so fed up with it, they finally built a room around the buckling. You'll see how,
that right?
yeah, the people, the agency, not when we were here,
Oh,
the
I
agency. Here's a better view of that closet, the hooks, how they had it for the kids to hang their coats up. That was in every room. Something unique about that, you know. In fact, I wonder if the new buildings are going to have a facility for students' coats in the room versus out in the hallway with lockers. Seems to be the way that people are going now with lockers. See the buckling floor?
Oh, yeah.
And they told me they got so fed up with it, they said, the heck with it, we're just going to build a room around
I'll
it.
be damned.
Look how it's deteriorated.
Jeez.
See, Diane Starbuck was in here, and she was so mad. Every day she'd come in, she goes, it was still leaking, it's still leaking.
Well, does she teach in this room?
She did it when I was here. Hear it dripping?
Yeah. They were in the other building when I was here.
And Sue Crabtree, we moved her to the bottom floor. She had a hard time getting
Oh.
around.
Huh.
You think she'll be able to come back at all?
I'm going to encourage her to. I think she will.
That time of year, but,
She's been promising me she's going to come back anyhow, so maybe this will help make it happen.
okay, well, it's going to be the last day anybody's going to get in here.
Well, I'm going to email her and let her know that 18th. I'll email and let her know.
One of the advantages of Garfield is, number one, it wasn't in use.
Mm-hmm.
And number two, Sue and Darlene did that wonderful history that would have never been able to be done
Mm-hmm.
had they done it. They didn't know that the building was going to close.
No, they were looking for 100 years
Yeah.
celebration.
And if they had not done this, we would not know. We would have had to go back and spend all the hours
Oh,
that
they
they
did,
spent
yeah.
digging through board records and things. So it's kind of what we're going to use to set the pace.
Well, they were
for the other
dedicated,
buildings.
Jim, to Garfield School. They
Well, I
were-
can tell. I mean,
You know, and the way they worked together on those two rooms.
Mm.
Their rooms weren't 19 and 21, it was room 40. So it tells
that's
you-
what this. Yeah. Well, every teacher that I've talked to that has taught here has some great affinity to the building. I mean,
Oh, yeah,
you know, when we were out to visit with Mary
yeah.
with the brick, I mean, there was teachers who remembered her and
Oh, yeah.
went out of their way to go out and do that.
Yeah.
So there must have been a real family
It was,
feeling here.
it was.
It was.
And
Yeah.
that's great. I hope we find that with the rest of the buildings when we start doing this at Lakeview and Lincoln and.
Oh, I'm sure you will.
I think so too.
But I'm gonna go down, and then we'll go down there.
It's all watery and it's leaking, so.
Why was there concrete so far in each of these rooms in the wood?
That's how they built it.
My guess would be just the wear and tear of the entryway versus the rest of the room where you'd be random in the room where everybody's got to come through the door. So I would just guess for the wear and tear.
Something they were doing in 1908, 1900, yes.
Steve, I saw Steve yesterday, he's gonna bring some coins for you. Well, can you imagine going up and down these steps for 18 years?
I can remember hall guard standing at each door with the broom to knock the snow off.
We could if you'd like. Would you like to go down to the lower floor?
Sure.
Okay.
I'm going
Okay. Gonna pass? Another one of the main entrances for the building, this lobby area here. In fact, in the wintertime, we allowed kids to come in here when they came early to school, just to get out of the cold. But all concrete, everything painted. Leak like everything else, leak, leak, leak. Okay. And then there's a lower level here we talked about earlier. It was an art room when Sam and I were here. And Bill and Dick had mentioned that it was even a music room at one time. Darlene Warner, who seems to be synonymous with this building, she was here for 25 or 28 years, I believe, in this building, and she was in the room on the other side, what they call the mushroom.
This was the art room.
Yeah, this was an art room.
Now, this is where they...
Yeah, see where they had the...
boxing ring?
Yeah, the people that rented the building after the building was closed, they had an actual boxing ring in here. And this, my art teacher absolutely loved this, not only because it was a kind of a unique room and she'd have mobiles hanging all over the place, and she really utilized it, but she loved the storage room. If you walk around the backside here, this is a little alleyway that leads to the furnace room and a restroom, actually, a working restroom at one point. She had a kiln back here. She had her kiln right here. She used all this as storage, and you know, what art teacher doesn't want a lot of storage? So she absolutely loved that. If you follow us back this way, restrooms into the boiler room, access to the This was the fan that pushed the heat from this big old furnace down here right up into the building. This is, and this is pretty much like it was when we were here. It was just junk stored here and there. Watch your step. Now, a restroom, original restroom when it was never used that way in modern times, but back when, this is, and they talked, the other side didn't have stalls. This side have concrete stalls.
Storage.
Yeah, I just made it storage. Yeah. I wonder if these new buildings will have actual basements to them.
I don't think so, other than crawl space.
This leads back up into that hallway we were in a little bit ago. But this is the boiler room. Again, a very unique area. Just don't see things like this anymore.
They're still using this.
Yeah, and when my last year here, the guy that serviced these furnaces said he said this could go another 100 years.
Yeah. They redid these boilers when I was here. This was the
And that's, yeah, this is the work area that Bill used. These are just old light fixtures, and they must have taken these down. They probably were considered unsafe when the young kids were here, because those were up when I was here. Bill always kept this place so you could eat off the floor in here. It was always clean. Bill Morris is now at Meister Road. Once he realized this building was going to close, he bid into that building. A lot of crawl space, not necessarily basement, but crawl space that goes underneath that newer addition. They probably did some inspection in this crawl space, probably looking for asbestos in their attempt here to tear this building down. They have to contain all that asbestos. So if you look back through there, you can see that somebody's been in there lately.
Must have been about 80, maybe 87 or 88. The teachers asked if they could, if we could have the closet doors keyed so that the key that they use for the classroom would also open and lock the closets. So I called Doug Beckler, who was business manager at that time, and they sent a locksmith out, and they spent the day repairing all the locks. And it wasn't 2 weeks later or so that some of the teachers didn't lock up their car keys, and they just left them in their jacket pockets or sweaters hanging on the back of their chairs. We think, we pretty much traced it to a couple students at Hawthorne had skipped class, had come here during the lunch hour, come up the back stairway on 31st Street, took two teachers' car keys, stole one brand new car off the parking lot at sometime during the day, and probably were going to come back and get the other teachers, but somehow they were scared of them.
I don't know if we got this on tape, but we probably should mention that the four of us represent about a third of the life of this building as far as the principals that are here. Bill said you were here 18 years, and then Dick said you were here 4 years.
I was here 8 years.
And I was here 5, and I was here when they closed the building. So almost a third of the life of this building.
Why don't you go look this way?
That'll cost you, Al.
Never the same, Al.
Lots of students, just 4 of us, but lots of students have gone through here. This building touched many lives.
Lots of Good students.
Yeah.
Well, you know, in 1969, when I had those 963 kids, I had a social worker for a 6th grade teacher, I had a business person for a 5th grade teacher, and I had a psychologist for a 6th grade teacher. Herb Mills' boy was a studied psychology, and he was teaching here. That's how desperate we were for teachers back in 1969.
Produced some good students. Ramon, Harris.
Oh, yeah, Raymond, I had Byron Cato. Maybe they might be interested in that. Byron Cato was a student here at Garfield in the early 70s, and he went on to star at Admiral King as All-Ohio lineman. And I happened to be down in Columbus, and I saw Woody Hayes at the same hotel we were staying at, and I mentioned to him that we've got a terrific football player at Admiral King. And he asked his name, and I told him, and lo and behold, Woody came down and scouted him, and he went on to become the starting lineman for Ohio State. And back in 1976, I was fortunate enough to go to the Rose Bowl, and who was on the field but Byron Cato. So that's quite a story to tell.
All because of you.
Oh, I don't know about that, but
Did you get any,
I'm sure he probably heard other people say
any
it.
kickback on that? No.
No kickback.
Well, actually, I thought maybe that story would have come from somebody from Ohio State.
No, that came from here. Oh, they want these.
Yeah. Do you have those identified somehow?
I better put
They're
mine.
yours?
No.
Yeah, you know, and Al, there's this picture I got. That was for one of the deaf classes back in '65. The barber shop organization gave the deaf classes a TV. It's on the back, the October '65, and it's SB, SBQUA, or whatever it is.
Okay.
So that's the only old picture I could find.
You need a pen.
Yeah, I'd like to just put my name down.
I don't know whether these are even worth leaving here. I assume that they have.
Well,
all of
he'll
this.
utilize, I don't think they have it, no. What we'll do is you don't have to mark them, we'll just keep yours and we'll put it in a bag so we
Thanks,
know
sir.
that we'll get them back
I
to
was
you.
going to say, this particular book was marked as far as the grade level, but this one is not.
Okay.
So it's just, you have to identify the
All right.
staff. And I have two more somewhere, but I couldn't find them this morning.
Well, we'll make sure we get these back to you.
These two are mine.
Okay.
Okay, is that it?
Thank you very much.
All right.
We'll keep you informed
A
of
group
things
of
that
you
are
gentlemen together.
in the years of succession.
Okay, let's see.
Succession,
You'll
let's
be up
see.
in front?
You want right to left?
Left to right, right to left by your looking at it.
Okay, yeah, okay.
That's a lot of bright light you have there.
If you could group nice and close together.
Yeah, I gotta
Okay.
put my arm around there.
That's my buddy.
That's it, good, right here. Good, I'm gonna come up closer and get one more.
Got a lot of reflection on my glasses, probably.
Oh, not too bad.
That's why I took mine off.
Here we go, gentlemen. On three, 1, 2, 3. Good. Did you
Okay.
get a good one, Al? Okay.
As good as you could get from this group.